It has been 6 weeks since the final flash lit up the sky. 6 weeks since the world fell quiet. Not peaceful, just quiet. The sirens have stopped. The broadcasts have gone still. No more alerts, no more orders, no more voices telling you what to do. Only the wind. Only the hollow sound of footsteps on crumbling concrete. Survivors are beginning to surface, blinking under the colorless sky, stepping carefully through what remains. Not because it's safe, but because there's nothing else left to hide from. Cities once alive with noise now echo with absence. Vehicles sit frozen in the middle of roads, doors open, lights long dead. Bones, ash, silence. The air still burns in the throat. Rain stings on contact. Trees are blackened, warped. Every shadow carries the weight of what used to be. And the quiet. The quiet is unbearable. There are shelters that haven't heard a voice in days. Communities sealed underground, now without power, without food, without answers. Generators are dying. Water filters are clogged with dust. Children are starting to forget what daylight looked like. And no one is coming. Not anymore. Emergency repeaters loop the same message over and over. Remain in shelter. Await official instructions. But those voices belong to ghosts. This is not recovery. This is not rebuilding. This is what comes after the end. The breathless moment between collapse and whatever comes next. The map of the world no longer matters. Borders are gone. Governments, fragmented, relocated, or erased. Flags hang in tatters, if they still hang at all. In North America, remnants of the federal government have split into 3 competing zones of authority, each claiming legitimacy, none capable of uniting the whole. One controls the Central Plains, broadcasting weak signals from deep military bunkers. Another clings to the coasts, allied with scattered state militias and naval remnants. The third is silent, rumored to have gone underground or rogue. In Europe, unity collapsed days after the second wave of strikes. Paris burns in the distance. Berlin is dark. Warsaw has vanished beneath radioactive snowfall. NATO remains in name only, a fractured shield shattered by too many impacts, too much loss. Russia is a question mark. Satellite feeds show a country frozen in silence. No new launches, no communications, just long-range drones patrolling over wastelands where cities once stood. Some believe Moscow no longer exists. Others say it's sealed off entirely, waiting. China watches from the sidelines, untouched, unspoken, calculating, Their silence is strategic, their movements slow and precise. They offer aid to some nations and warnings to others. But their real intentions remain hidden behind perfect smiles and jammed frequencies. Across the globe, a new order begins to take shape, not in capitals or parliaments, but in local strongholds. Warlords, technocrats, survivalists, some offer protection, others demand submission. Cities turn to fortresses, highways become front lines. Resources, not ideology, now define power. International airspace is closed. Oceans are patrolled by silent machines. Satellites flicker in and out, as if watching, hesitating. The world is no longer divided by lines on paper, but by access to light, water, and air. The age of diplomacy has ended. The age of control has begun. They said the worst was over, that after the blasts, the ash, the silence, there would be nothing left to burn. But they were wrong. What followed the shock waves was not stillness, but ignition. Cities still smolder. Rural forests, dried by years of drought and poisoned air, spark like kindling. Chemical fires rage in abandoned industrial zones. Black smoke choking the sky, blotting out what little sunlight remains. Each night glows dim orange, not from warmth, but from the slow combustion of what used to be civilization. And the fires are not all natural. Fuel depots sabotaged, refugee camps attacked. In some regions, militia groups now torch small towns preemptively, cleansing them of dissent or fear. In others, desperate survivors burn down roads, trying to halt the advance of looters, soldiers, or something worse. The land itself is changing. The soil is sour, soaked in ash and radiation. Crops wither before they can bloom. Rivers run black or dry altogether, poisoned upstream by collapsed dams and ruptured pipelines. Cattle lie rotting in open fields. Birds have vanished. Only insects remain in large numbers, resilient, hungry, multiplying. In the Midwest, entire counties burn unchecked. The firefighting infrastructure is gone. In California, a firestorm merges with a radioactive cloud, creating what observers call the red veil. It moves like a creature, slow, thick, suffocating. Where it passes, life doesn't just flee, it ceases. There are whispers now of fire lines being drawn, not by weather, but by human hands. Zones scorched deliberately to isolate populations, to contain panic, or to make way for something else. Those who still write, on scraps of paper, on bunker walls, in fading digital notes, call this new era the season of smoke. Because even after the sirens stop and the missiles fall silent, there is still something left to consume. And fire does not forget how to feed. The power is gone. The networks are dark. The cities lie in silence, but not in peace. Millions have become refugees overnight, not crossing borders, but fleeing their own homes, searching for anything that might still resemble safety. They travel by foot, by stolen vehicles, by anything that moves. Their faces worn with exhaustion, eyes hollow from hunger and fear. Families shattered, friends lost to the chaos. In the ruins, survivors form fragile communities, makeshift camps on highways, beneath collapsed bridges, in underground tunnels. They trade food, water, stories, and sometimes violence. Without electricity, radios are the lifelines, crackling static carrying the last vestiges of information. But even that is fading. Medical supplies are scarce. Disease spreads unchecked. Without refrigeration, food rots. Clean water is a precious commodity. The simplest wounds become deadly. And the law? The law is a ghost. Police forces dissolved or overwhelmed. In their place, militias and gangs vie for control, offering protection at a price. Hope is a currency harder to find than water. Yet, amid the desperation, humanity flickers. Neighbors share rations. Strangers shelter the weak. Messages scrawled on walls promise we survive together. And children keep playing, even here, even now. But survival is a game of shadows. Trust is a gamble. Every step outside the shelter could be the last. The dead grid has made refugees not just of geography, but of existence itself. Where do you go when home is gone? Where do you run when the world you knew no longer exists? For those left wandering, the answers remain as uncertain as the dawn. the midst of chaos, not all have surrendered to darkness. Scattered across the shattered landscape are pockets of resistance, small, determined groups refusing to accept the new world of despair. They are survivors, fighters, organizers, citizens turned guards defending what little remains. Armed with scavenged weapons and old radios, they coordinate through coded messages. They establish safe zones, temporary sanctuaries where the vulnerable can breathe. These pockets are fragile, threatened by gangs, shortages, and the ever-present shadow of radiation. But they endure. They repair what they can, patching radios, restoring limited power, rerouting water supplies. They share knowledge of radiation zones and safe passages. They salvage medical supplies and distribute food. More than survival, they cling to purpose, to the belief that civilization is not lost, merely broken. Stories spread of daring raids on raider camps, of rescue missions in toxic zones, of children taught to read by candlelight. But the fight is exhausting. Trust is scarce, betrayal common. Every victory costs dearly, and beyond the ruins, new threats emerge. Unseen eyes watch from hidden places. Unknown forces move in the shadows, exploiting the chaos. The flicker of resistance burns bright, but the night is long. Will it be enough? The echoes of destruction still haunt the empty streets and silent ruins. Beneath the shattered surface of a broken nation, the struggle for survival has become a test of will, resilience, and humanity. Government command may persist underground, but for millions above, chaos is the new reality. Communities cling to the fragile hope of connection, but fear and suspicion run just as deep. In shattered neighborhoods, trust is a rare commodity. Survival has sharpened instincts, but numbed empathy. Curfews and martial law attempt to impose order, but the lines between protector and oppressor blur in the absence of clear authority. Healthcare workers battle not only the wounds of radiation and trauma, but also despair. Resources are scarce, supplies rationed. Every life saved feels like a small victory against a tide of loss. Meanwhile, rumors spread faster than relief convoys. Whispers of new threats, biological agents, rogue militias, underground movements, unsettle an already fragile population. Yet amid the shadows, sparks of resistance and solidarity glow. Small pockets of survivors organize food sharing, security patrols, and makeshift schools for children who barely remember a world before. Radio broadcasts like this one become lifelines, a voice in the darkness reminding you, you are not alone. Every message carries a weight beyond words, a promise that humanity endures. The path ahead is uncertain, the wounds are deep, but survival is more than breath. It is a choice, and as long as that choice is made, there remains a flicker of hope. The fragile balance between survival and collapse teeters on a knife's edge. Global alliances are fractured, but still hold, a brittle web stretched to its breaking point. Satellite feeds are patchy. Intelligence reports are fragmented, contradictory, but one truth remains: the conflict is far from over. Behind the scenes, covert operations escalate. Unseen battles in cyberspace ripple out, threatening to dismantle what little remains of civilian infrastructure. The specter of a new weapon, more devastating, more insidious, haunts whispers on every channel. Leaders scramble to contain the chaos, but some factions see opportunity in the void. Militias rise, fortified enclaves form, and the question hangs heavy in the air: who will claim the remnants of a world undone? Meanwhile, the skies remain heavy with ash and uncertainty. Every transmission, every signal, every whisper becomes a beacon for hope, or a call to surrender. You are part of this story now. Choose to endure. Choose to resist. Choose to be the light in the gathering dark. The dust is finally beginning to settle, but the wounds left behind run deeper than anyone can see. Cities that once thrived now lie in ruin, their silence a haunting reminder of what was lost in an instant. lives, dreams, and futures extinguished beneath the unforgiving shadow of nuclear fire. Yet, in the midst of this overwhelming darkness, a fragile light flickers. It is the light of resilience, the stubborn spark of humanity refusing to be snuffed out. Survivors emerge from the shelters, battered but unbroken. Strangers become allies. Communities begin to stitch together the frayed edges of a broken world. From the ashes of despair, new hope takes root. The road to recovery will be long and arduous. There will be setbacks, heartbreak, and moments when giving up seems easier. But history has taught us that even after the darkest nights, the dawn always comes. Every act of kindness, every shared meal, every whispered prayer for tomorrow fuels the fight to reclaim what was lost. It is in these moments of quiet courage that the true strength of humanity shines brightest. Remember those who have fallen, not just as victims of a catastrophic war, but as a call to all who remain, to cherish peace, to build bridges instead of walls, to hold fast to hope even when the world seems beyond saving. This is not the final chapter. It is the first page of a new story, a story where survival is only the beginning. Hold fast to each other. Keep your eyes on the horizon. And above all, never forget that as long as one voice remains, the light will never truly go out. The future is uncertain, but it belongs to those brave enough to face it. And now, the dawn is waiting.